Welcome everyone to the Vermin Sermon. Today, we want to start off with talking about timed exclusives because I think one of the Call of Duty games, one of the newer ones, I don't follow the series a whole lot, said something about how either a mode or something is exclusive to the PS4. Can you elaborate? Because I actually don't. I don't know.
From what I know, the Modern Warfare 2 remaster came out of nowhere. It's a perfect. You could say it's a perfect timing for, especially with a Modelo lockdown. But I'm guessing Sony probably paid them a stupid amount of money because for a month no other console or other platform can have it. So
Yeah,
essentially, they're locking off a game which is perfect for people at home now, just for a few million to do over many other people.
yeah. Now, you see, it's a whole thing of really to any publisher, the whole goal is to make money. And if they can get that by any means possible, they will. So it's understandable, but I don't think that means it's reasonable. I think I completely understand why it's happening. It makes sense if you're going to get lots of money for it. But it's kind of sad that publishers often will be willing to have their player base shafted if that means that they get to make more money, which is really sad. But if you think about it, it's never not been that way, besides some like rare examples. But yeah, um, I think looking back at timed exclusives, the one that comes to my mind, GTA 4 had its DLC, the expansions. They were exclusive to 360 for a while. I don't actually remember how long, but I could see like if Rockstar did something like that, people would be up in arms, or maybe they were. I wasn't paying attention too much to the internet back then, so I wouldn't have been aware. I really, yeah, it's just kind of crazy. But there are also a lot of PC timed exclusives with respect to different stores nowadays because of the Epic Game Store. So, like, if anyone doesn't know, oftentimes because the Epic Game Store will actually pay developers more, which is great. Or I guess I don't know. Maybe it goes to the publishers. Who I don't know. I need to do more research. In any case, it's beneficial to the people making or publishing the game to have it on that store, and then there will be exclusivity on that store for a while. I think Red Dead Redemption 2 had it for a couple months on the PC version where you couldn't really get it on Steam for a good while. Um, yeah, I'm curious. Has that ever influenced your decision that, would you be willing to wait, or maybe you have waited for a certain game for it to
Yeah,
come to a certain store? Red Dead.
Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah.
I honestly now everything dusted. Like Epic Games is not as bad as they were, and there's
Yeah.
decent platform that they got like online saves and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I'd want to keep it all to like a minimum. Like with
Yeah.
Cyberpunk, I want to get it on Steam, even though
Mm-hmm.
you do want to support the developers and all that.
Yeah.
But I just want to make use for myself and have to download and log into an extra service that I can avoid if I need to.
Yeah, I completely understand. I'd really like to be able to have all, games at one place. And I know that people say, oh, just make a shortcut. It's not that bad. Well, yeah, it really isn't, but it's still nice so that you have every feature that having a game fully supported on a system is there. So if what I'm saying is, when you're let's say you have a certain game on Steam, then you can access the store page for the DLC, or maybe there's DLC like links directly by it or something. I don't know. Like that kind of thing. Well, I'm sounding like I don't even play games anymore. Honestly, if we're gonna talk about some in real life stuff, 2020 really is not the year of the gamer. But hey, each to our own, I guess. It all
Yeah, the
depends on what you're
deadline, man.
doing.
Yeah.
Uh, Actually though, I've been playing a lot of Assetto Corsa when I have time. So like, yeah, what I'll do is I'll work for a certain period of time and then I'll take a break, and Assetto is just perfect for that. Because there's like almost all of it relies completely on the gameplay, that rather than story or progression or this, that, and the other thing. And what can you cram into 15 minutes that'll be worthwhile? gameplay. Just solid gameplay, not anything that would take more time, and then therefore, you wouldn't really get a satisfying experience out of. But yeah, I as much as I'm not really having a good time with arcade racers, I'm really starting to like Assetto Corsa, and I hope that uh, actually, are they? Does anyone know if they're making a second one? I know Competizione, or however it's pronounced, came out, but I don't know if they're actually going to make a second Assetto Corsa or something like that. Because I feel like if you, no, go ahead, go ahead.
Maybe something like next gen, but I don't. I'm not into Sim, so I can't really say. I don't know that much about it.
Yeah,
But it is cool from what I played. I do like it.
yeah. It's a lot more fun with mods. Mods are one of the reasons I actually like could get back into it. That doesn't have to be for everyone. What I'm saying is you can definitely have fun in the game without mods, but mods make a world of difference. Even things like the user interface. There are mods that have one UI that replicates Gran Turismo 5, and I don't know. There's just like the UI in Assetto is really customizable, but also if you want to quickly be able to see the stuff that you need, it's a little I don't know, not it's not amazing. It doesn't feel like a AAA game. I mean, well, it isn't, right? Isn't it independent? Is it independently made? Assetto Corsa?
Honestly,
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's like the way I would describe it is everything about the game is not so much a game, and that's completely understandable because its purpose, its design philosophy is to be a simulator. It doesn't have to be like a game. It's a blessing that there's even a story mode or a basic campaign at all. Um, but yeah, the UI is a little clunky and weird. There aren't that many modes, and there isn't really a story at all. But you don't have to have that because the way it feels, especially on a racing wheel, easily makes it worth a purchase to anyone. If I could, man, if I know money's going to be hard to come across, and especially in the states with the whole the thing Modelo, we'll call it that, and unemployment and all. But man, if I had, if someone gave me $500 right now, and I didn't have, I guess what I'd buy a racing wheel and a Assetto Corsa, no questions asked. It's unbelievable. I can't stress it enough. It's like now for the first time I'm actually considering an upgrade to my wheel. Um, just because what's it called? Direct drive wheels are out there. But the thing is, I know that while I am putting in more time into it, I'm not at the level of skill where it would really come in handy. It would feel better, way better, I'm pretty sure. But it's not quite. I'm not at the level of someone who would suit a direct drive wheel. But I'm looking at those. So like in the next 5 years, maybe I'll get one. But yeah, sim racers have really kind of been the thing holding my sanity in these times. But other than that, I haven't been doing much other than working because colleges and high schools or whatever, people have probably noticed that professors have not stopped, uh, you know, assigning unrealistic amounts of homework in these times. But
100%, man.
it is what it is, though. Uh, yeah, so that's kind of the state of affairs. And I guess just to round up on timed exclusives, it's really unfortunate that, the customer isn't valued that much. It's we're more so we're just a dollar sign to these people, but there's no changing that. I don't think it'll ever change. I wouldn't be
Oh,
surprised if. Oh, go ahead. What were you saying?
I got some final things I want to say.
No, yeah, go
So
ahead.
with stuff like this, with exclusives, if you're going to do an exclusive, I think don't be half-assed and make it on one thing forever, or just don't waste people's time by doing a time exclusive because the other company or whatever is still gonna have that, and it just makes you look like a dickhead.
Yeah, Yeah, 100%. And there are other exclusives where they're not really timed exclusives, but they kind of sort of are. Like if you think about Death Stranding, which they announced that a year from now is going to come out on PC, and then Horizon Zero Dawn is now going to come out on PC, and then Sunset Overdrive, which was before Xbox games for Windows, that's now on PC, and so I wouldn't really categorize those in the same place. I think that's more so a situation
It's
of you think you,
it's a different style, like the way
yeah,
Microsoft are making their games available to PC.
yeah. Well, that for sure. But Sunset Overdrive, that was a surprise just because it came out uh, before the whole Xbox Play Anywhere. So that would be to the same effect of having Forza Horizon 2 release on PC. But, only the third game and onwards are going to be on PC, as far as we know. But going back to, games like Horizon Zero Dawn and whatnot, I think that doesn't really apply here. I don't think. It's more so games are developed to be exclusive for a system, and then later down the line, either certain contracts expire or something else happens. That's my assumption. Uh, and honestly, a lot of people are really upset about games like Death Stranding or Horizon Zero Dawn coming to PC, and it baffles my mind. I would understand in one situation if you just bought a PlayStation for those games, because then it's kind of a waste of money. Um, but then you have to ask the question, why did you buy a whole console for one or two very specific games? Um, in any case, a lot of people are really upset about that, and I just it goes back to this idea of people want to fangirl over Sony, and then the idea that they're giving these games to more people, and therefore this like inferior selection of people who have access to this game now. That's really the mentality, and it's really disgusting. But yeah, people are upset that more people get to play games that they like. Just confusing. Uh, in any case, speaking of PlayStation, there was a possible delay happening with the PS5. I'm gonna look back briefly to see what that was more about. But if you remember, do you want to elaborate on that just a little bit?
Well, it could be a load of shit, so take it with the biggest mountain of salt you can muster in your house because we're knocked down. But basically, apparently, according to some industry insiders, that's some issues with the cooling of the NVMe drive due to a shit design. And the reason
Mm.
why they haven't really talked about it is because of this, because they probably have to change it down the line. And
Mm.
I saw in another video, I know you can believe everything you see online, that they don't want to look like they're copying Microsoft, and because apparently their design's quite solid, especially from what we've seen when people have opened it up and shown how great piece of engineering is.
Mm.
But again, some other people have said this could be just BS and just to drum up fanfare. So when it's released, that's all people are going to be talking about.
Yeah, honestly, one of the things I think it could be is that I would not know from experience or from knowing, but um, have this assumption that maybe while the PS3 was getting developed, it had heating issues. Nobody knew about it. They fixed it, and it's fixed for release. Maybe the Xbox 360 had a similar problem. I mean, if you think about it, if you're trying to get a system and you have parameters, you don't want it to get too hot, you want it to stay under a budget. Within that, how powerful can you go? You're gonna hit those limits, and then that's when you draw back a little bit. I really don't like. What if they were, again, I don't know, but what if they were just experimenting and they're like, okay, we now know we have to underclock the CPU a little bit, and then what's underclocked is then on launch how it is, and then maybe it's even then it's still competitive with the One X, or you know what I'm saying. I feel like the bottom line, whether or not that's true, the bottom line is I think people are just making a big deal about it. as per usual. Um, yeah, so, you know,
It's probably just it's either like probably other fanboys for other things just chatting shit, or it
yeah,
could be something that's probably gonna delay the console a lot if the rumors are
mm,
true.
yeah. There's also that. I mean, for sure, the consoles are gonna get delayed if manufacturing is still outsourced to China, and then, the whole
Mm,
situation.
yeah,
Um,
the Modelo virus.
I keep saying it like this would ever get monetized anyway. It's the coronavirus. I keep saying, like, trying to dodge it. Like, no, it's not gonna make a difference for us. In any case, yeah, because the coronavirus probably that's what's gonna be going on. Um, so yeah, I really don't care. I'm not really looking forward to getting a PS5 anyway. So
Same.
unless, okay, two things. Unless I really just want to, like, hey, replace, if all PS4 games work on it, then I'm thinking, okay, I'll trade in the PS4 for some money, get a PS5 a little bit later down the line, for when the next Gran Turismo comes out, because I do want to play the next Gran Turismo, but I don't want a whole console for that. Um, yeah, and I wish, you know, if I had the choice between skipping out on the PS4, getting a PS5 for the Gran Turismo games that come out, rather than having played GT Sport, if GT7 is made, then yes. Um, if there is a full-on Gran Turismo, because GT Sport, I know people are excited that we might have talked about this before. I don't remember.
Yeah,
Um,
last week, like saying it was like a skeleton or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, it's cool that it's getting updates, but it's still like a third of what a normal Gran Turismo game is in content. So like, yeah, of course it's getting updates. It would be unbelievably like disgusting if it didn't. Ugh, there's like 100 some cars or something like that, which isn't much for Gran Turismo. And again, I understand why. We already went over this. You know, they wanted a fresh start. They wanted to increase quality, and to do that, they had to have less stuff in it. Whatever, we talked about it before. So yeah, I think unless you want to add anything else, that's really all I gotta say about the PS5's delay. I'm not really even so much so looking forward to the console. So yeah,
Same. Also, I probably would if I was to buy, I wouldn't buy a launch, especially if there's some issues like
yeah,
with new tech they've never really used, like NVMe's, like maybe overheating or bricking
mm,
or whatever. So,
yeah,
and also like the price would probably
go
drop a
down.
bit as well.
Yeah, you see, with the PS4 that I have, it's so extremely loud. The fans are that I just don't want to play it because of how loud the fans are. It's actually that bad. And some friends have said, "Oh, maybe it's just, my system." But suppose that there's a higher chance of that happening with the launch system, and then a lesser chance of something like that happening with the slim model. Then I'll happily take the slim model. So, yeah, honestly, I don't I feel like getting systems on launch is usually not an amazing idea. Not on launch, but like on launch editions, if that makes any sense.
That's the
So,
same thing with a lot of modern technology, like new computer processors. When they come out,
mm,
the motherboards don't usually work with them. They have loads of issues. Some of them are DOA, and
yeah.
they become like the test subjects essentially.
Yeah, and like with graphics cards, if you want to talk about Nvidia, like their Founders Edition, which is basically paying a premium for having less performance than an aftermarket one, which is really sad. But yeah, if that still is the way it is, I did get a Founders Edition 1080, which is sad, but it was right before the prices went extremely high, so that's pretty good. But yeah, actually, if you don't mind, just going off of graphics cards, there's a video I saw. I think the YouTuber was Hardware Unboxed. In any case, they tested 40 different graphics cards on Doom Eternal, and a lot of old AMD ones are still holding up pretty well, which is really surprising. I mean, by how much uh, they're holding up. Like I don't remember which ones, but I think it was like an R9 290X and then a GTX 780 Ti. The frame rates, they weren't even comparable. Like the GTX had like 30 37 some frames or something like that, and then the AMD card had like 90 or more. I don't remember, but it was ridiculous. So I don't know if I want to get an AMD graphics card the next time I'm building a PC. Have you thought about like kind of like what you're gonna, I guess, figure out about that?
I think
Your next computer?
with stuff like you said now, like from what I've seen, AMD graphics cards age better, but at the start they're kind of not as fast as the competitors.
Yeah, that's true. They're not amazingly fast, but they do age better, and that's really what's holding my interest. My
Yeah.
current PC, I've had it for a couple years, not a whole lot. I'd still consider it relatively new. It doesn't feel sluggish or old. I built it in 2016, I want to say. Um, and then once I'm out of college, which will be in 2023, I think I'm gonna build a new computer because then by then it'll be like what 7 years old or something like that. So,
Yeah.
I think that's a decent time for how long a PC should last. But then again, NVIDIA graphics card, will it last? Will it really? Honestly, though, it's a GTX 1080. It'll definitely last that long. Will it be like as great? No, of course not.
Mm,
Um,
no.
well,
The Volt 8 is better as well. But maybe with the if you had a 1080 I would. But that's just like another OP level.
yeah, yeah, that's true. The TI is ridiculous. I remember just the regret when they announced the TI and just how big the performance difference was. But
Yeah,
then
I got one
like
and I love it.
yeah, but like you gotta always remember anytime you get a graphics card and then it feels like sometime later, almost immediately another one comes out. You know what I'm talking about? That's how it feels
But
sometimes. But
unfortunately, that's just tech for you, isn't it?
yeah, it's just technology just goes so quick. But the 1080 Ti is almost like the high end sweet spot because the 20 series I think is just completely overpriced and ridiculous.
Hmm.
Um, isn't a 2060 like $400
Let
or something like
me
that?
check the standard one because there's a super as well and some other
Oh yeah,
ones.
the
Yeah,
super.
like now, like about what I'm seeing for about nearly 300. A 2060 Super, which is a faster version,
Mm-hmm.
is about 400 or a bit more. So
400. Those
super,
are that's in pounds, right?
yeah, so
Dude,
it's slightly
that's a
more as
lot of
well.
money.
And then
And
like a 2080 Ti, if I do quick, about a grand. A shitty
that's
lower version
ridiculous.
is about £1,000 exactly. It's just
Yeah. To anyone who can hear, pardon if the mechanical keyboard is in the background. I should probably invest in a more silent one. But in any case, I'm gonna real quick see how much a 1060 cost originally. Okay, it was
uh
originally 250.
250.
Yeah, 250 to $300. Um, and then the 1070 was supposed to be like 370 or something like that, and then the 1080 was 500. But why is a 1080 almost the price of or rather, I guess a 1070 almost the price of a 2060? Unless the 20, like even if the 2060 is as good, or if it has, I would consider it almost like it has to be better than the
I need
1070.
to
Let me
check.
let me rephrase because I said that really badly.
Yeah,
I
I checked
think
on user benchmark. I don't know if it's good or not, but it says it's 7% faster.
7. That's it.
Hmm.
That's stupid, man. So for the price
They just
of
checked everything up because they know people are gonna pay.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, the point I was trying to make, right? Let's say a 2060 or 2060 Super. Try 2060 Super. I guess a
Oh,
1070 because I think that's a bit more of a better comparison.
20%.
20%. Okay, okay. I don't follow graphics cards all that well, so I don't know if that's like that's a decent jump. But the point I
It's,
was trying to make
it's
is
like a 2060 Ti in weird terms, but they got a weird naming scheme.
yeah, yeah. Honestly, though, it's You see, with the new generation of hardware, I would expect, I guess, more power efficiency, better performance, uh, but pricing shouldn't really go up, if that makes sense,
I
per
think
each
with
respective card.
if AMD brings out some really nice
High
cards
end
in the
ones.
future, the high
Mm.
end ones are like I think from what I've seen, the Xbox Series X GPU is like on par with the I think a 20 wait like
I
well
can't
it's
remember
well on paper
which
it's more
ones.
powerful than my 1080 are
Hmm.
12 teraflops and similar to some of the second 2000 series Nvidia card, which is quite powerful, and obviously it's going
Yeah.
to come in a hell of a lot cheaper, and the desktop equivalents are not going to be that expensive, I imagine. So
Hmm.
like it probably going to make everything cheap and better competition, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, but I think the 5800 XT is a somewhat high end card. It's not like crazy ridiculous high end, but it's pretty good. But anyways, the point I was trying to make is if you have a graphics card for $400 and then a generation later it performs only slightly better a graphics card that costs $400, that's really not much of an increase, if that makes sense. But you see, I think the technology did increase, but then so did profits. You know, what it takes to produce probably something to that level of performance probably reduced a little bit, but then they market it. It doesn't really feel like a generational leap, if that's if that makes sense. I guess with
Yeah,
the
it
10
does.
series and the 20 series, only because of the pricing. If the pricing made a little bit more sense, then yeah, it would feel like a generational leap. But yeah, Nvidia is just crazy. So at this point, I'm not so sure if I'd want to get an Nvidia graphics card, and I for sure almost am certainly looking at AMD processors for the future because Intel's not doing amazing at CPUs, at least now. Um, I think we have the same CPU, don't we have? Don't you have a 6700K?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was a great CPU and still working and everything fine. Mine's at a overclock. It's not extreme. It's a fairly mild overclock, so it'll last a while, but then still be pretty decent. I think it's at like actually I can just check with Task Manager because I don't quite remember. It hovers around 4.2 to 4.3 gigahertz, so that's not a huge overclock. Some people get to like the 4.6 region, which is
yeah.
insane. um, crazy overclocking. I just don't understand it. Unless you can just afford to do that and like you can buy another CPU in the next 2 years, then whatever.
I
Go
tried.
ahead.
I tried 4.6, but this one's stable. I could do only for
Yeah.
4.3, which is solid. But I do feel like I want to upgrade soon because I can
Mm.
see I can feel it aging
Yeah. Yeah.
in in some software.
Yeah. I noticed one of the it wasn't Need for Speed 20. I think it was actually Payback. Had really big stuttering issues. If my CPU is any slower than 4.2 gigahertz, I tested
Oh
with
yeah,
overclocking. It stutters like crazy. Um, and then also Need for Speed Heat. I noticed one of the reasons why I'm getting decent performance is because my graphics card is overclocked. Uh, I tried it when my GPU wasn't overclocked, and it was just ridiculous. And the crazy thing is, mine's at a fairly modest overclock. My graphics card, at least I think so. Like I'll
Mhm.
notice a small but decent frame rate change in games like Horizon 4 or The Crew 2 or Assetto Corsa, and then in Need for Speed Heat, it's monumental. And then now I realized, um, because some people have had really bad luck with that game's performance on PC. It's just optimized terribly. So I initially thought, oh, I just was one of the lucky ones because I was getting better performance than some people with TIs and some people with 2070s. As soon as I have it set to stock clocks, I'm getting really terrible performance again. So it's really weird. I like with overclocking, it must have hit like a certain threshold, at which point it's now getting much better frame rates or something like that. I really don't know. It's just mystifying.
I think that's just people at EA. A Ghost, well, a previous Ghost Studios, who
Yeah.
didn't know how to optimize for shit.
Yeah, and it's, you know, the last few Need for Speed games on PC have not really been amazing. Um, Now, I've been lucky with 2015. I've been really lucky with it. A lot of people have said that they have this big problem of their car falling out of the map, and I've seen it in videos, and I know what it is and that it exists. I was just fortunate that I didn't have that issue. But Payback, I had crazy stuttering, and then I checked temperatures are ridiculous on my CPU with Payback, and then heat is just all over the place. As I've already explained, I tried it on my laptop, which has a 1650 in it, or yeah, I think it's a 1650, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. I couldn't get any higher than 35 or 40 frames at 720p minimum preset, or low preset, whatever it's called, or very low, whatever the heck the least impactful preset. But then I messed around, and there's a certain setting that really caused it to tank. So while it could look like complete trash, it was playable at a slightly higher frame rate, but still, it's somewhat broken. I should segue to the next thing. Uh, Also being the first episode since we took Need for Speed out back, buried it because of its sad death. The funeral service will announce later. They're now the social media account people are giving out free codes for the game constantly. It's ridiculous. I can't even count how many codes they're giving. That's cool, and it's pro consumer, but you can tell that it really is kind of the end for it, um, because instead of telling us what's in store for the future of it, they're just throwing out codes for the game because like it is the epitome of we don't have things to present, so here, just take this. What already exists, if that makes any
I
sense.
I agree with that 100% because like there are millions of other games that are doing well. Like look at Rockstar Games GTA 5. That's a nearly 10-year-old game now,
Yeah.
and that's doing well. But they didn't give out any free codes, and not many, not no other company really did that. But I, of course, I understand because in this kind of situation, people do want to play and all that good stuff. At
Hmm.
the same time, if they were doing so well, they wouldn't need to.
Yeah,
And this,
exactly.
I can't. Well, this is a bit probably a bit different, but I think Ivory Tower have done that a lot with the crew too. Say what you will about
Yeah.
now, but back then you could say it was dying, and
Hmm.
they made out that the first year of the game was really good when they're just giving it for free or dirt cheap.
Yeah, it's because they don't have anywhere else to go. They don't know what to do. Just kind of giving out codes because what else is there? Um, and I don't think it's not impossible that Need for Speed gets revived, but that doesn't really happen with Need for Speed because they just know, oh, we'll wait 2 years and then we'll get another chance. That's why live support stopped so quickly with Need for Speed 2015. Uh, it's because they're like, well, let's just start working on the next game. Or maybe they got lazy. I actually don't know. Because now that I think about it, Forza Horizon 4, with all of my personal problems with it, is getting pretty good live service. I will have to say that. So now I'm wondering if it really is that or not. But whatever. Um, Whatever the case is, maybe the next Horizon is gonna come out. Well, actually, technically, the next Horizon would be coming out this year, and it probably won't be. So that might explain why. But in any case, I really feel like they just try for a certain bit and then give up, and I'm really afraid that they've given up already. Um, but you see, with the Crew One, kind of died, and then Wild Run basically revived it, made the game look way better. Had new modes and stuff, and it was genuinely a really good expansion. I think.
Improve physics.
Yeah, they did that too. Um, I don't have numbers to cite, but I'm pretty sure it increased player count for a bit. People trying out the new stuff and everything. They made changes to the map, minor changes, but adding the arenas and everything. They changed the UI a little bit. They kind of cleaned up the game. You know, that was kind of like I could, if Need for Speed was not in the hands of EA, I could see that happening with Heat. I could see it getting some kind of a revival with many things, but that's not the case right now. And honestly, with it shifting developers to Criterion, what do you predict is gonna happen with Heat?
I think they're gonna drip feed it like with those body kits and those cars,
Yeah,
and then people are just gonna say that it is alive, it's not dead because they're handing out a few cars, and that will be it. And
yeah,
then they said that it's the same cycle of shit games. Of a shit game that's going to be started again next year or whenever they release the new one.
yeah. Or the next cycle of a decent start, but then it's not supported at all. Because I still think Heat is a decent game, but and I'll,
But I
I'll
think
always hold to it. I'll
decent
always
ain't
hold
gonna
to it.
cut it anymore, man.
Yeah, no, it's not. But I'm always gonna, I guess, kind of stick to that. But the real problem wasn't that Need for Speed Heat wasn't an amazing game. A lot of games these days take time to really, I guess, get decent, and that's honestly that's I don't think that's a good thing. But you definitely do see the trend. The Crew 1 at launch wasn't amazing, but then after updates and updates in the Wild Run, it got better. Forza Horizon 4 wasn't like, to people who enjoy Horizon 4 now because of its live service and what they've added, they would argue that it wasn't so great when it first came out. But then over time, got the root creator, got more online racing like modes and stuff like that, got drift lobbies, got a lot more stuff, content. They would also argue that it took some time. It's not quite the early 2000s or mid 2000s where you just buy a game that's good and it'll be complete and you just play it. That's very rare, at least for racing games. Um, you see the problem, like if we're gonna give it the benefit of the doubt, which is okay, it launched in a really sad state, but so do so many other games. So let's just see what they'll do to support it. And they didn't support it. That's kind of the problem here. Um, the real problem of it, just they are not giving us a complete product. I almost feel like we've gone so far at this point that it's unrealistic to expect anything different. Like I honestly genuinely think it's unrealistic to expect a Need for Speed game that'll be a complete experience from day one anymore from the future. I just don't. People it's almost like abusing updates, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
You know?
it's just what's that word? Relying on live service too much and them just becoming lazy and not
Yeah.
doing anything.
Yeah, and
Unfortunately.
uh I know it would be great to have, you just buy a game and it's a complete experience, but that's so rare with racing games. Arcade racers, it's so rare that I would not count on it. So if we're giving it the benefit of the doubt there, then it becomes, how will they support it? And the problem is they're not supporting it. And as to how I think Criterion is going to handle it, I think they're just going to get out the rest of the content that they had planned earlier. So there were leaks of, the black market updates, or more specifically, the themes attached to each one. So like I think they were titled such as the Italian Job, and then like something about Britain. So that
Japan
would, yeah, and
as
then
well.
there's one for that. I think they had that content planned, which, if you're gonna ask me, that makes no sense. The game has so many other issues. Why are you trying to add on to it? When like add something that it doesn't need when there are so many other things that it does need. In any case, I think they're just going to get that stuff out there, and then uh, Criterion is, they're probably gonna just, honestly, they're probably working on the next game now, um, and then they're just having a few people uh, just rush out some other cars and content and stuff. And honestly, I'll probably enjoy the free car part of it. I honestly, the DB11 Volante, I think, uh, it was a decent amount of gameplay for it, and it did give you a decent amount of races. So I'll give it credit there. But they're just gonna release that, then the game's gonna feel dead again, and then they're gonna do that until they're basically done with it, with that set of content. Maybe release PvP. Maybe. You
In
see,
my opinion, they shouldn't just focus on the next one because they've effed it up, and especially with the coronavirus, no one
no one.
is going to give a shit afterwards because it's not ready for a while. It's not going to be ready for a while
I
anyway.
mean, here's the
Especially if the
thing.
working at home were laid off.
Like the way player interest just drops off after a certain point, PvP isn't really gonna help here. Like, cause
Yeah,
the
that's what I
games,
mean. That's,
like, it's not gonna bring people back. Not that many people back. It'll bring some people back. But here's the thing. Like, I remember PvP in the crew too when it was added. It brought me back, and then I didn't have time, so I waited, or about 2 days after the PvP update for the crew 2 came out. I decided to hop on, so it did bring me back. And then I noticed that, oh wait, I'm racing against two other people, and the lobbies take a while to fill up. By fill up, I mean finding enough people to play with. So then I did return, or I did return, and then I left. And when they bring PvP, something similar to that is probably going to happen. Um, Honestly, I feel like if a game is released without it, it's basically a sign of its early death. You know, unless it has a super dedicated fan base, I think it's a sign of its early death. Um, you know, games.
Need Speed has a dedicated fan base, but they're
Mm,
dedicated for the wrong reasons,
I mean,
and that just it just shows with what's going on and what people are saying about it and all that.
I don't know. You know, whether or not it's for the right reasons or not, the super dedicated fan base of Need for Speed, it's not big enough. Like you'll find large groups of people that are willing to coordinate with other people. Like, hey, let's all go on PvP, and like, okay, but if they didn't, you can't just go on the game and then find a full lobby. Does that make sense? The fan base just isn't that big. Um, so the hardcore dedicated fan base, it is out there, and there's
There's
nothing
only
wrong with
about
that.
two people I can think of on the internet who would actually be sweating it, be like,
Uh,
I should play daily if it
mm,
came out. That's
yeah,
about it.
yeah, that's about it. Or again, the really dedicated people. There's nothing wrong with that. If you really like the game, you know, good for you. Um, but yeah, I feel like when a game doesn't have PvP on launch, that's kind of a sign of its death. Uh, you know, it's like how do they not get it after the Crew 2 came out, and then like the player base just fell off. And whatever. The one reason that makes me think that they might have speed lists or PvP or whatever, in one of the reveal trailers or early trailers for the game, they said something like PvP or speed lists are not here on launch or at launch. And that makes me think, okay, it's not at launch, that means they're gonna update it and add it in.
Yeah, 10 years
But
time.
but but things have changed now. Developers have changed, and I say developers. Really, they got some more people, and then some people left. That's it. It's not a big change. Um, I think what's gonna happen is they're gonna finish the black market updates, just kind of just like finish it off, maybe release a bare bones PvP update, um, and then they're gonna start working on the next game, or if they haven't already, then just keep working on the next game.
You
Uh,
know, now I could like still bet the next game, unless something changes a lot, it's gonna be broken in the exact same way he was in previous games.
mm,
On
I feel it feels like
with stuff like clipping,
oh yeah,
crashing, optimization, and stuff.
like I feel like maybe just a resource. I keep thinking in you know, oh, maybe it really isn't their fault because of this, but then the more you look at it, it's like, no, it actually kind of is.
I'm
What I
sure, like even other shitty games, well, in my opinion, like Anthem, I'm sure that didn't have any clipping issues, and that's using the latest buff, and that's using the latest bus by.
uh,
Mass Effect didn't,
mm,
Battlefield doesn't, and so on. So
yeah,
it's something else.
I feel
You
like
can't, maybe like 5 years ago would have
mm,
blamed someone else, but it's the developers, man. They've been with this game for a long time. I mean,
yeah,
the engine. and
Yeah, that's true.
nothing's changed.
Um,
But if you go back to Need for Speed The Run, it's 100% solid. I played it recently. I didn't have any issues at all. It looks pretty decent, even though it's like only decade old. And
yeah,
the
now,
cars, when you floor them, they don't like fly in the sky. They just stay in the road,
yeah,
like in real
but
life.
there, it is on Frostbite 2. Now, I don't know anything about game engines with respect to how a revision of it works. Maybe they made huge
Hmm.
changes into how things are made. In any case, uh,
Now, my
what
point is
I
that they've just been with. I'm sure they've been with this new one for quite a while. It's Frostbite 3 in it or whatever. Or similar ones to what other studios have. So I'm sure they could get help if they realize an issue like this happened. Because I'm sure
yeah,
in
probably.
quality testing, QA, whatever you want to call it, they must have noticed that. Oh, when I drive over 100 miles an hour turn, I fly to the moon. I fly to Zorgon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sure they would have seen this issue a long time ago.
Yeah, well, it takes them so long to fix things, right? In Need for Speed 2015, we have uh, no speed list on launch, but we have a great all drive system, a broken handling model, dead cops that are free roam, and such and so on. Payback comes around. They improved the handling model. Still not great. You still can't really race with grip. Um, Now there are clipping issues, or at least if there were. I mean, if yeah,
I
honestly, I don't
think
even remember clipping issues in 2015. Is that weird?
I think they're just more exacerbated because we've had the been with this engine for a while, and it
Yeah.
seems they strip things back to fix some parts,
Yeah,
but
and then
could be
like,
wrong.
but it takes so long to fully fix something. Um, and a lot of things that aren't completely fixed. They brought more intense cops, but now in Payback, but then they weren't free roam. They brought PvP, but then there's no online free roam. Like
And then
all
it
of
needs
these
to be
things. The,
it
the
needs to be they brought back decent cops, but then
decent
after a while I
cops.
realized they're just disabled.
It's just they just use the damage bar to make them seem threatening. They made them faster, I guess, but that wasn't the whole problem. The whole problem with 2015's cops was that A, they weren't fast, and B, they didn't really do much to stop you. So they solved the first problem with Payback because they're faster, and they kept the same, or at least if they made them faster than Payback, then there you go. But then they don't really have a means to stop you in heat except just that you have this cheesy damage bar, which I was afraid of from the moment that I heard about it, that it would ruin the experience. And lo and behold, for me personally, yes, it did. I hate the damage system in heat so much, and that comes down to like a maybe just a personal thing. But then again, in Hot Pursuit 2010, a game that I don't often praise, its damage bar is pretty sufficient. And I don't know if it was a game design choice because it's a closed track racer and you decide for how long a race is going to be, and then therefore can choose how much damage your car can take to
Mm.
be a reasonable amount. But I don't know where I was going with this tangent. But the point I was trying to make is that
It
it
makes
takes so
sense
long for them to fix stuff, and that they don't
in
completely fix stuff. Like the
oh I
handling.
mean like with the handling like everything makes sense in Hot Pursuit, but like in
Mm,
Heat it doesn't. It's like
no, yeah, no, it doesn't.
it's like let's say they got artwork that blackbusted over a decade ago. It's
Mm.
obviously been the bin for over a decade, for nearly a decade. They take that, but they realize it's ripped, so they probably get little shit and try to stick it back together, but it ends up being a million
Oh
times worse
yeah.
than even probably the worst games.
Oh,
It's a
actually,
really
and I want to mention something. Icon cars in 2015 they had different designs and people weren't happy. They didn't sound like the cars they were from. They didn't look like it. They didn't use the original body kits. Payback comes around, it cleans up the design of them a little bit so that now they what's it called?
actually resemble a
Yeah,
bit.
they resemble a little bit better paint and vinyl wise. And then in Heat, they actually will sound somewhat similar to what they did in the original games, and
And the
as
body
well
kit's
as that, and the
essentially
body
exactly the
kits
same.
are pretty exact. But why did
Yeah.
it take 5 years and two games to get there? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Imagine how many resources they use of
And
that instead of actually making a good
yeah,
game as well.
like it feels like they took two games to make a change that some other developer could have done in one update. Or maybe I'm ridiculous for thinking that, and maybe there's a technical reason for that, and changing what they needed to change breaks everything else in the game. I have no idea, but that's what it seems like on the outside. Um, you know.
Like us, like you know that the off-road people from Payback,
Oh.
the group who drive those dark
Uh.
green cars, like that's a waste of
Yeah.
time
Yeah, it
making
was.
a special SUV that many people probably didn't give a crap about.
Yeah, and um, here's one thing. I think whenever you, as a developer, make some kind of a change in something, then people are going to expect from that point on to have that same feature, and they won't remove it for a good reason. Um, you look at brake to drift handling. I bet 2015 would have handled like Heat's grip handling if there never was brake to drift in the first place, because it probably did take them that long to find a way to have brake to drift and grip handling that isn't broken, if that makes sense. So it took them that long. But if you didn't ever have brake to drift and Need for Speed in the first place, then that problem wouldn't exist. And it wouldn't
It's
exist because
like
now you don't have a
what's up?
fan base that you have to appeal to. And same with off-roading. They have it in Payback for no reason, and now you have people who want off-roading in the next game, right?
It's like doing mental gymnastics to for a problem that didn't exist before. It's like
Yeah.
let's say like you make a really nice car over a decade ago. Everyone loves it. It's perfect array. Obviously, it's a product from the time.
Of its
So
time. Yeah.
of its time, and then you're releasing another one like a sequel, but then you may change some massive bit that completely ruins it and
Mm.
alienates it while trying to get something new, which
Yeah.
is essentially what they've kind of done. But
Yeah.
in a way, they've changed the fan base, but in some ways
Like,
you can say it's shit because it literally
yeah, if it
ruined
was a
what everyone
good
else wanted.
addition, if it was a good addition, then it's great. Then, like, yeah, let's have more of that. But off-roading, who's gonna want to do off-roading in Need for Speed? And especially with the physics of off-roading, they're better in Heat than Payback, but still not great.
A waste of time, especially if it's not implemented 100%, which it
Yeah,
wasn't. It's only in daytime and like races you can count
some races.
on one hand, I'm sure. And it's
Yeah,
like
I don't get it. I really don't
this
get
doesn't
it.
make sense.
Yeah. Uh, I wanted to ask. So, Need for Speed Heat's dead. It's pretty dead now. It's
It's
just a
toasted.
mere. It's a shell. It's a skeleton of what it. Actually, no. It was released as a skeleton, but
Nah,
then it was never turned back into
it's at
human.
it's at a third of the cock exploding.
Yes.
The thing at the bottom of your back.
Yes. So, with that being said, do you think it would ever be a good idea for them to release a remastered Need for Speed game or a remastered collection? Because I know there are like
Well,
two big groups of people that have different opinions on it.
honestly, it's one of those. If they do perfect, would
Okay.
uh,
It's not. It's not. I wouldn't
no,
expect that.
no. I mean, if they do perfect, like let's say they release it, but use a different graphics engine for whatever reason, and they
Mhm.
ruin the physics, and that will ruin it for me and all the
Yeah, of
memories.
course.
But if it's released as it is, as the way it was, but maybe with upgraded graphics or whatever, like textures, lighting, stuff to make it pop and look
Hmm.
nice in the 4K monitor, and I'll be happy for it, like as a bundle. But
Yeah, yeah, for
I
sure.
don't. I honestly don't think they're going to do it from. I'm sure the developers have said before some
Yeah, I'm pretty
issues.
sure we that well, not only licensing, if it ever does become an issue, but I think they've also mentioned something about how we don't want to kind of live on in the past. We want to make our own thing, which is kind of ironic considering how important icon cars are apparently to their like
Lol.
design philosophy. But regardless of that, like really strange and weird inconsistency with their thinking or some people's thinking, um, the way I see it is there are the two main groups of people people who are just dying for a remaster, and I was one of those people when I was maybe like 10 years old. And I'm not saying that as an insult. I just mean like around that time, around the time Hot Pursuit 2010 came out, I was like, man, I really wish they would re-release Most Wanted or something. And a lot of people did, because there wasn't really anything that resembled street racing to the way that games like Most Wanted, Underground, etc. did for a while. As time goes on, and now I'm like, okay, I want new experiences. I don't want the same stuff over again. But now I'm starting to think, suppose they keep doing this 2-year cycle. Every 2 years, a Need for Speed game releases. But then every other year, for a little while, they do remastered games. And they have a different studio do it. And I don't think the studio is important, because it could maybe even be Ghost, or at least what's left of it, to be an engineering hub as it is now. Because if they're keeping the physics and the core of the game the same, then updated graphics and everything else, yeah, why not?
I wouldn't trust Ghost with it, even if.
Yeah, honestly.
Also, I'm at the point where if I did play it, I'd like it, but then I'd get bored of it because I've played it like X
Yeah,
amount
for
of
sure.
times.
Yeah, me too.
I'm sure
get bored
a lot of people who do love it and want it will probably have the same realization after a while too.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Also, those games weren't really built to be long lasting. They were built to be good experiences that are enjoyed, and then
I
that's
know
it.
it could be the minority, but people will be begging for stuff like a modern online style kind of
Yeah, like
element
no,
to it,
that's probably not gonna
which
happen.
would I was probably overthinking, but
Yeah,
it just wouldn't
it really
work
wouldn't work that
that
well.
well. Maybe unless they do something the way the Call of Duty have remastered the old games,
Hmm.
where it's still the exact same experience, but it just looks a
Well,
lot nicer.
well, actually, no, because if they actually made a decent experience that people wanted to play, then no one would look forward to the next trash Need for Speed game that comes out. Because then people are like, oh man, I want a new Need for Speed. Uh, and then if the remaster is so good that they can keep playing it till the next cycle, then it's like, oh well, now no one wants to play Need for Speed Payback 2 or whatever the heck they're gonna call it. So I feel like it would be acceptable, just because then it would be on a 1 year cycle, right? It would be on a 1 year cycle. So like that would be like, imagine, there's a new Need for Speed game coming out this November. That would be what that feels like, and then it's a remastered version, and then that alongside other things could probably hold over people till the next year, at which point the next actual Need for Speed game comes out. So I could see it doing pretty well like that. But yeah, I really don't. Honestly, I don't know if I trust them with
I think it's just one of those things
porting
where
it
be
either.
careful for what you wish for.
Yeah, yeah, true. Like Burnout Paradise Remastered. I love it because it's Burnout Paradise, not because it's Burnout Paradise Remastered. What I mean by that is, I enjoy it just because even a gimped Burnout Paradise experience to me is still very enjoyable. Um, but there are actually quite a bit of issues with the remastered version. The global leaderboards just don't work. Just straight up, you cannot see like what are the top times for things. I know a lot of people don't care, but if you do, there you go. One thing that was annoying for me personally, the Toy P88 Special has a different weight in the files than it does in the original. I think I also talked about this last week or something like that.
Yeah,
Uh, but yeah, in any case, what I'm saying is it is definitely possible to mess up a remaster a little bit, and who knows if there was a remastered Need for Speed game or a collection. If it's Ghost, I would feel very, very worried or very cautious about that. Also, real quick, how much would you be willing to pay?
because I'm a broke student and because I don't have to care too much.
Yeah,
No more than like 15-20 pounds
15,
per
20. I
per
think that's
game.
reasonable. I think that's reasonable. For me, I don't
I'd rather
think.
have them. I'd rather them just do a trilogy instead, where they
Yeah.
just release that once, so they don't gouge out people in terms of prices.
Yeah. Although that would leave it so that let's say that happened this year. Well, and then there's an Need for Speed game in 2021, and then it's back to a 2-year cycle. However, suppose it was Underground 1 and 2, Most Wanted, Carbon. I think that would be a great. I would honestly, I would pay 60 for that. If really are a good remaster, and it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm just on PC with mods. If it genuinely feels like the game looks like way different. Like, have you seen those Unreal Engine 4 remakes of old games like Mario 64 and stuff like that?
Of
People who,
course, they
yeah,
look real.
like
I'm
if
sure like Half-Life as well. Really
mm,
cool with the new engine, from what I remember.
yeah, but if they did that with Need for Speed Underground, Underground 2, Most Wanted, Carbon, just call it the Underground Collection because that's the kind of underground style still.
Yeah,
Um, I would easily pay 60 for that, easily, because it's 4 games, and they are like fully remastered like that. If it's anything less, I would really not think it's worth it. Um, just because. So I guess if $60 for 4, I guess would be 15 for each. Um, I don't know. I have started to come to the realization that older Need for Speed games, and this is gonna annoy people, and that's completely okay. I'm totally fine with doing that. They're really not anything special.
this was
Yeah,
perfect for the time.
they were great for the time. They were great when I was a kid. I replayed Most Wanted 05 some time ago on the 360 because I wanted the 360 port. I had a good time. I had a good time, but I didn't think I was playing something revolutionary, something like unbelievable. And now that I think about it, I didn't really think that when I was a kid either. Those are just the games that I had to play when I wanted to play a game. I was like, okay, I'll play a Need for Speed game then. Um, like even as a kid, when I play something like Burnout 3, I'm like, whoa, what is this? This is crazy. This is ridiculous, you know? Or like with Midnight Club, and how actually challenging it is, and how it forces you to pay attention to the roads and pay attention to the traffic and the attention to detail with, different like NPCs and AI, and like how they'll talk trash back to you or something, or if you scrape their car, if you do this or that, everyone has a face and a voice, and it feels very real. Or like even old Gran Turismo games, you hear the stories of people and like how much they played Gran Turismo 4 because it really was like that crazy. A PS2 game that ran in 1080i, which is ridiculous, and had just so much content and just so much aesthetic to it. And like when I look back, Need for Speed, I they've been half decent games. And honestly, you also have to remember they were made in 1 year. Some of them in 1 year or 2 years, but then they had half the studio work on the next one. Um, so it's if they were given the time, they would have truly been amazing. Like actually fully deserving of the praise that they get these days. But when you look at them for the way they were, they really weren't a whole lot of anything special, I think. I don't know. I just don't really see it anymore. Um, but yeah, it's I was definitely way more persuaded by nostalgia in the years before, and Need for Speed Carbon is still my personal favorite racing game of all time, because it was what brought me into cars and everything like that. And my first Need for Speed game. But as for, I mean, but still, objectively, Carbon looks like a really great game for something that was made in a year, or released 1 year after another game in the same series, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So, yeah, that's all I've got to say. I feel like it would have been way better than Midnight Club had it been given a full like 4 or 5 years to make one of those games, or even like 2 or 3 years of consistent development. You know, uh, like when I'm another way. I guess the last thing I want to say is the Black Box Need for Speed games are, to what I understand of, let's say you have Rockstar Games, they make a GTA game every single year, um, and they have to obviously limit it because they have to make one every year. That's kind of how I see it. So, yeah. Is there anything else you want to add, real quick?
I kind of agree with all that, and with stuff like things being rushed, it's noticeable in the latest seventh generation games, especially
Mm.
with Undercover, which is like shit in comparison to Midnight
Yeah,
Club,
yeah, for sure.
LA.
Yeah, it's like I know I know why people like Undercover, and that's completely fine. That's cool. I enjoyed it the second time I played through it on PC, but it definitely, like, you can tell there's a massive difference in quality, starting with, honestly, I enjoyed Pro Street, but it's really rough around the edges. I love Pro Street. I absolutely adore Need for Speed Pro Street. It really is probably one of the most unique Need for Speed games in the series. One of the most unique racing games, but it's really rough around the edges, and there's no denying it. And it's for a reason. They Not that many people worked on Pro Street because they were trying to get out Undercover, and then they messed up Undercover. Um, but yeah, I think that will kind of round off the end of this one, and we will see you all in the next one.